So these next two are under section 14. This is about why people join movements. So it says when people are ripe for mass movement, they're usually ripe for any effective movement, and not solely for one with a particular doctrine or program. The petite bourgeois social democrat and the trade union boss will never make a national socialist, but the communist always will. So the point here is that a moderate will never become a radical, but a radical could potentially be in any kind of movement. And so what Eric Hoffer is suggesting is that the movement itself doesn't matter so much. The person is willing to engage in what occurs in a movement. He is essentially radicalized, and the particular goal can change. And this is why Hoffer says later, this is under section 16, the problem of stopping a mass movement is often a matter of substituting one movement for another. So again, he's saying this point over and over, is the movement itself is not quite what matters. The people in it are the ones that are driving it. And the goal happens to be whatever demagogue arose at the time. So the Bernie Sanders people, for example, they are in all kinds of movements. A lot of them were probably in the Occupy Wall Street movement. But it's not the movements that matter so much. It's just the people. And on section 15, he says that movements tend to be many movements inside them. So I'll just read this. It says, it is rare for a mass movement to be wholly of one character. Usually it displays some facets of other types of movement, and sometimes it is two or three movements in one. You'll get a mix of people who are in these various groups, and there is some diversity, because a lot of these people come from different groups, and they perhaps were protesters elsewhere. You might have heard of the term professional protester. These are people that are essentially bussed around to different protests, even though they don't care at all about what they're protesting. They're just there to hold a sign and not answer questions from the media. That's what you generally see when you look at the newspaper or the news, where they're showing some kind of protests. All kinds of those people have protested at many different other events, and a lot of them were just bought and paid for to sit there. But it's not that the movement itself is not why they're there. It's the people that are the radicalized ones, and they're the ones that are filling all these different protest groups. But it's not as if the joke is that people think that like mom and pops from down the street walked outside their door and brought a sign with them and were protesting. That's just not how it happens. Most of the protesters are actually people who go from protest to protest and are often even paid for that. So it's always the pictures you see are always a little bit distorted of who's actually concerned with these things. If you got all their addresses somehow of all those protesters, you would find they're not from the local area. They're actually from different areas, and often they know each other from previous protests.